Kindly. Um, welcome, welcome back. Third episode. Today we're going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite topics in the entire world. Can you guess what it is yet? Can you guess? Suits. I feel so strongly about suits. I, paid actors. I don't know. I thought it was kind of rustic, and like I thought for me to film this at home, where I'm from, the Lord's country, County Down. I thought would be kind of like, Reese Witherspoon, Sweet Home Alabama, big hotshot city lawyer, makes her way back to the countryside and finds who she really is. But in effect, it's just triggered all of my allergies, and so now I'm like still sick. Shush. Today's video essay. This is my first video essay for YouTube. Oh, amazing! I'm so excited. Could I say I'm excited any more times? Anyway, is the parody of men, power dressing, and women. Ow. Get into it. Get into it. But basically, suits have always been something that are so close to my heart. I grew up with a nanny, not a nanny, like a live-in carer. My nanny is my granny. She was so chic. She went and retrained and became an interior designer in her 40s, and was just she just like had taste. She had class. What was that? She was a real broad. Loved a suit, loved a patent shoe, loved a boot. Big fan of a boot, big fan of an aviator. Never got her ears pierced though. Brethren woman, they don't pierce their ears. Always had the French nail tip on. She had that shit on. Big purse. Walking to the interior design shop, purse first. And I think watching her interpretation of taking up space, we're all big women in my family. We're big women. I'm 5'9.5" barefoot. So really with any shoe I'm 5'10", and with a boot I'm like 6 foot, especially in like these, which I don't mind. I've come to love taking up space, and suits have actually played a really pivotal role in my style in my 20s. Roll the tapes. The tapes. And I really wanted to talk about it today because I notice a real increase, an incline, if you will, of really sharp tailoring and suiting at Paris this year. And I really wanted to talk about it because, as you guys know, I'm not just obsessed with the beast that is fashion. Let's get it out of the way. This is very much a left of center podcast. We believe in a free Palestine. We believe in a free Sudan. We believe in a free Congo. We believe in reproductive rights. We believe in trans rights, LGBTQIA plus. Darling, okay. So, but what I'm interested in fashion is how fashion communicates. Fashion is a vessel that shows us what has been and what's coming. And if you can actually learn to read the signs in fashion, you can learn what to expect and how to read the zeitgeist, because fashion is actually a reflection of everything Kamala Harris, everything that has been and has been before you, darling.
You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
But it's so interesting. Fashion is about politics, it's about culture, it's about conservatism, it's about leftism, it's about bold new ideas, brave new ideas. It is a reflection of where we're at as a society. And that's what gets me going, darling. That's what really gets my gauge going. There's a gap between my personal values and morals and luxury fashion. Those two things very rarely overlap, but I'm so interested in the sociology of fashion. So let's get into it. So, like, also off the bat, like, this just isn't going to be like your other fashion reviews. We're not just talking about fashion for fashion's sake, because this is my channel. Okay. So, we're going to go down the rabbit hole. We're going to harness the raw, unmedicated power of rampant ADHD. That's what we're going to do. We're going to travel through the subject of suiting through my eyes. So buckle up, get a cuppa, put on some noodles, an oven pizza, if you will. Get locked in. I think I've said let's go like 3 times, so let's actually go this time. So there's 3 designers that I really want to hone in on from Paris, and really interestingly, they're all female designers. I want to talk about Chloe. I want to talk about Stella McCartney. I want to talk about Bottega Veneta, and obviously Bottega Veneta, Louise Trotter, like in a year where there's been like the ultimate transfer Tuesday, when designers have been moving left, right, and center, and yet women really haven't been focused in those movements. There's been very few um, female newly appointed creative directors. Let's run some stats here. But I think what a lot of people were saying about this season was, I think people were struggling to find things that felt really fresh, like truly fresh, and felt representative of women. And there's been so much discourse, darling, about do men really understand women and understand how to dress women? There was articles from the Financial Times, from the New Yorker, from New York Style magazine. Also, you are being serenaded by mad cow disease to the left, birdsong to the right. Apologies. Left, right, left. Like this grey trench coat with the detachable paneling. What's the name for that? The house weave. It's not intaglio. What is it called? Anyway, but that, like that leather, like that, that wider is just gorgeous. And I found it really interesting that it was very muted, because as we know, everything is connected. Really, really muted tones, and I'm interested in what that suggests, because actually all of the collections that I've chosen to talk about from this season all have very, very muted tones. And I may be jumping ahead here in my my list of things to talk about, but actually muted tones and suits are both recession indicators. The more you know. If you think about it, these designers are making in a way that is easily accessible to consumers. And it's really interesting because suits took a real big jump in 2023. And we think what was kind of happening back then, we've been in lockdown for, on and off for really 2 years at that point, and we were just kind of attempting to readjust to some form of normalcy, which we've never really gotten back to ever. Um, but suits almost became this uh, cosplay, like this really fun thing that people wanted to put on, because nobody's going to the office anymore. Nobody wants to work anymore. No, nobody wants to, or nobody is going back to the office. Everybody's hybrid, everybody's work from home, and it's massively changed the way that we interact with clothing. But if you think about it from purchasing, from a buying perspective, making these suits so everyday, so wearable, oversized, but tailored, with these huge shoulders, and the way that they just like drape and fall, and especially this curved. There's this one. It's like a real column with the bag. I need to learn what the name of the bag is. Louise has made clothes for a modern woman. It's a loose trouser. It's not a fitted top. That is a functional garment, and it's really, really high luxury. Honestly, Louise Trotter is everywhere. I don't really need to get into this collection too much, but I just want to talk about the craftsmanship, the volume. Interesting, it being her debut. And I want to jump forward, because I wanted to talk about one of my favorite accounts on Instagram is Data But Make It Fashion. I don't know if you guys follow this account, but it is literally what it says in the tin. They take the data from the runways, from the recent fashion weeks, and they put it all together, and they kind of consort and figure out what it all means. And I'm in no way a mathematically oriented person, but I find this really fascinating. And they did 2 back-to-back posts about suiting. And I found the comments really, really interesting. Let's jump to the comments. So the comments under the video of noticing a sharp uptick in suiting on the Paris runways was met with comments like, they want the girlies to work, but where are the jobs? Tell me about it, sister. That's why I'm here on a Friday afternoon with a figurine of John Cena. Okay, Eliana says, it also feels like a way to combat fast fashion and a new way of class signaling. Fast fashion could never recreate the craftsmanship of these houses, but it's a lot easier to spot an ill fitting blazer, clock my gag, than a colourful, bedazzled copy of a runway look because the eye is distracted by all the bling. Fair point, Eliana. Next comment. Stop trying to romanticize corporate culture and make working from the office cool again. We want 4-day work weeks and remote jobs. Annie's telling like it is. A job at all would also be really nice. Really, really nice. So I've written here that Data About Makeup Fashion commented on this and referenced Louise Trotter's Bottega and the suiting of Stella McCartney. And I love this account because it reminds us that fashion is not only a business, but it's also a metric. It's a lightning rod to channel, predict, and funnel energy. Fashion allows us to see where we're going as a society, but the question this season was, do the designers even know their customer anymore? What I think this points to is that suiting and work cannot really be separated. They're so closely intertwined, but it makes me think of, those memes like your granddad putting on business casual to sit in front of the TV for 6 hours. Like that's how I feel. I find suiting really comfortable. And I've been so drawn to suiting for so many years of my life. Like I think about it. I developed I was born at a very young age. I developed at a very young age, womanly speaking. And I was very uncomfortable with my sexuality in terms of sexuality repression growing up, very religious, but also feeling unsafe in order to explore my sexuality and feeling that as a result of different traumas and as a result of different things that happened to me, um, getting leggy did not make me feel empowered. I just wanted men to fear me, I think, more than anything. And I'm just a big girl. Like, even at the height of my ED, womp womp, when I was tiny, I still took up a lot of space. I'm just a big girl. And so I think I learned quite young that actually taking up space is a power move, it's a power play. And it's something that I was so interested by and really wanted to lean into. And so suiting, as you can kind of see from that like run through of the days of our lives, Lucinda Suit Edition, suiting has been such a core part of my 20s. Like all of my going out looks were all suits. One, because it was actually really cheap. It was really cheap to like thrift a cheap suit and wear it like a dress, wear it as a two-piece, layer it with like a cute little top underneath, do the full set. Do we go loafers? Do we go trainer? Do we go heel? Like what way do we pair this? Or what way do we bring this? Um, it's just always been such a strong part of my wardrobe. Now actually looking back on it, it's and as my style has changed and progressed from much more hardcore punk and rave, it's progressed through to something I don't know what we call this. I don't know, girls. I don't know what we call this, but it's progressed into wherever we are now. Suiting is still a safe space for me. And I couldn't help but wonder, do other women feel that safety with suits? And I also want to make it very clear when I say women, that includes the encompassing statures of women, AFAB, trans women, non-binary people. Just want to make that clear from the get-go that that's what kind of space this is. So just so you guys know. Oh, it's getting it's a little bit nippy. Oh, I had to go and pee because that's my sixth coffee of the day. Oh, sorry, John. Getting back into it. This next collection brought so much joy. This really, yeah, this just put a huge smile on my face. And I haven't seen that many people talking about it. What? Wait, why is no one talking about this? And literally everybody's talking about it. But the commenters and the people that I follow, the people that I love, this collection hasn't been picked up on, and I'm struggling as to why. Why, Delilah? So we have Chimena Kamali's Chloe. Um, this is so special. Like this is genuinely so special. It is so female oriented. It is so anti male gaze. It is so functional. It is so aspirational. It is so luxury. It is so beautiful. Um, and it's just really caught me off guard. And I would really encourage you, as you go and as you look at collections, actually watch the runway footage as well. It's really important. And also, do you want to know? No, actually, sorry. Do you want to know something else? My pet peeve? Yeah, you want to know? Want to know what it is? Paywalls. Open up the door. Let me in. Let me in. Vogue runway. I have to log in for the rest of my life and pay for images. That feels so wrong. So Kamali's, this is her third year, almost third year with the house. This just made me smile because we talked about my nanny earlier. I've seen her wear stuff like this. I've seen her dress like this in the dropped waist, the volume, and we looked at the volume at Bottega and at Stella McCartney, and uh, the masculine tailoring of those collections. But this has volume in a really feminine way. And just the draping of that leather. Are you kidding? I just know it's buttery soft, buttery soft, like just money. I just know that smells like money. Oh, to have money, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? This collection is just so stunning. It just really, like, you can literally see my face light up. It makes me so happy. The volume, the draping, the high neck, the hair kind of just pushed back, the glasses. And also what's really interesting is the warm tones that have been used here. Obviously there are some greys as well, but whereas Stella McCartney and Louise Trotter have both done these steely greys, these kind of hard, almost armor like suitings. This is suiting and this is power dressing, but from a very different stance. And mixing in these really poppy lipsticks is so fun. But also, what I want to draw your attention to here, we talked about how suiting is a recession indicator. So there's something known as the hemline index within the fashion industry, and the hemline index is actually where you can relate the hemlines of skirts to the economy. So it's been noted that as economies boom, as they do well, as we're in seasons of economic growth, hemlines actually go up. And when we're doing le chitre, they go down. So interesting that a lot of that something that these three collections have in common is that all the women are very covered. Is it a recession indicator? We are in a recession, just no one wants to talk about it. No, no, no. None of y'all want to talk about the recession. So, and as well as that, lipstick theory, the lipstick theory. So, the lipstick theory, could I say lipstick any more times? The lipstick theory is that when we go into times of economic downturn and recession, women obviously don't have the same money to spend on 7-step skincare routines, on, frivolous new makeup products, hyped new makeup products. But what they do have money for and what women tend to reach for is lipstick. Because a £6 lipstick, like a 6, 7, 8 pound Rimmel, doesn't feel like you're breaking the bank. Like that could be a meal deal. Let's be real. Do you know what I mean? Oh, rhyming. Oh, but that feels something that is like a little bit of self care. And so I thought it was really interesting that we've seen these like really bright lipsticks. Also, I like the kind of counteracting nature of that kind of 80s flirtiness and that fun with something that is quite serious. Maybe. I don't know, but the cream, the drapery, this kind of steely lilac is just phenomenal. Sorry, I just have like such a visceral reaction in a good way, not in the pejorative sense, to this clothing. The trench coats and just and like the lilac jeans with like the leather belt and like the shoulder. Ah. That is so stunning. I love that. Like, absolutely no notes. So another reason why these collections for me are really, really significant is because we were seeing 15 debuts this season. So 15 designers that were starting new, fresh at the helm of a new house. So you'd like JW at Dior, you had Duran Lantink doing his thing. We won't talk about it. At JVG, you had Louise Trotter at Bottega, blah, 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 right? However, what has really come out of Paris has been multiple publications talking about the relationship between women, like women's clothing and men designing women's clothing. Because we know that even if a man is gay, it doesn't absolve him of misogyny. We see it very often. Um, and so I think it's really interesting that those are my standout collections, not because they're made by women, but I feel as though they understand women. And I mean, even this article that was teased from, was it the Cut? No, it was the New York Style magazine featuring Alex Consani wearing that weird Alaya little moment, which why bother? Like honestly, why bother? Is it craftsmanship? Is it skill? Does it look nice? No. If I wanted a pair of knitted pantaloons around my shoulder, I just get my old jammies from Primark. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean, vibes? But I thought the comments, let's go to the comments again. Very, very interesting. Lillian's hair underscore male creative directors. Tell them, Lillian. My Memories Museum. Someone said you can tell when a designer loves women. Dot dot dot. The Museum. Then maybe there needs to be more female fashion designers at the top. Does the fashion industry hate women? Sometimes I think so, but I find it really, really interesting. And also, if you're maybe coming to this new and you don't have as um broad a breadth, but if you don't have that kind of more clinical understanding, I would highly recommend that you go listen to the Can't Not podcast. One of my favorites, all linked in the description below. Also, the BOF podcast. Imran Ahmed and Tim Blanks discuss the season, and there's just like a lot of things that us regular girls wouldn't be privy to. So it's always great to get that extra bit of insight from people who were there, right? I don't want to dwell on the issue of um male designers hating women, or you know, all this kind of thing that the industry is kicking up dust about, because that is a whole other video in and of itself, and I don't want to lose the focus on suiting, which is what we're here to talk about today. So I might kind of like park that, but I thought it was important to note. However, moving on, something that I found really, really interesting is while I was reading all of this discourse, the discussion betwixt the girlfriends online, I couldn't help but think about John Berger. So suiting has changed so much through the ages. The uses of suiting, we touched off of that, where you know suiting was so intrinsically linked with the workplace. However, in the last kind of 50 years, it's been reimagined in so many different ways to communicate so many different things. But I couldn't stop thinking about. There's a really specific quote from Ways of Seeing by John Berger, who was an art historian, an art critic, a writer, a great thinker. If you haven't read Ways of Seeing, I would highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite books. But actually, if you struggle to read like me with ADHD, all of the resources are available via. I don't think they're on iPlayer anymore, but they are on YouTube. If you just type in like the actual John Berger Ways of Seeing. But just to read this direct quote for you. Men act and women appear. Men look at women, women watch themselves being looked at. This determines not only most relations between men and women, but also the relation of women to themselves. The surveyor of women in herself is male, the surveyed is female. Thus, she turns herself into an object of vision, a sight. And to break that down and to break that apart is to be that women exist in a constant vacuum of being watched, even when we're alone. So it's the kind of thing of, you know, selling women loungewear. I like when someone else buys me nice pajamas and nice loungewear, but I really instinctively reject fancy loungewear because my loungewear is the clothes that I've relegated that are so old that I don't want to wear them in public anymore. That's my loungewear, my Adidas, my Harley Davidson t-shirts. And to kind of be sold this idea that we need to look a certain way even when we're alone is really insidious and is really telling. So basically what John is talking about here is the way that we observe ourselves the lens is always through the lens of the male gaze. And I find that for me, suiting is something that allows for that push and pull between the masculine and the feminine. It's something that makes me feel strong. I'm taking up space and I feel seen, I feel perceived, but I don't feel sexualized. And in that way, I feel like there's a real reclamation of space when it comes to suiting. I've written here, for me, the push and pull is what it's about, the regaining of that power, that strength. And for me, that's all that these three I can't read, these female designers have achieved. So they achieved that strength. Um, these cows. Oh my gosh. And it's not me saying that other male designers didn't achieve it, because Mathieu Blasi, his debut at Chanel, certainly achieved it. But I just wanted to hone in on these designers' collections specifically. So talking about like the politics of being seen and of taking up space, I really wanted to go back and delve a little bit into the history of suiting, just a little bit. Um, Obviously my channel, not yours. I'm going to do what I want. But I want to talk about 1980s power dressing. So I'm an 80s girl, like through and through. I am just an 80s woman. I like an aviator. I like uh um a Gucci pilot, like a Havana lens. I like a Tom Ford large lens. I like big hair. I like bold looks. I like blush up to God. I like big hair. I've already said big hair, but I like it even more. I like jewelry. I love costume jewelry. I love accessories. I love taking up space. And there's something about that decade that I find really like, it just like lures me and calls me like a siren. And my nanny like never left the 80s. Like she's been wearing the wrong shade of Estee Lauder for 30 years. And yeah, I'm just like built like a friggin' linebacker. Like I'm just a big girl. So like taking up space just feels really natural to me. It feels like it's something that I should do, and it's something that I talked about, like traumas before. Kind of really discovering that decade for me within music and film and fashion was something that I came to very late in my life because of my religious upbringing. I just wasn't exposed to culture in the same way. Um, like art was always pushed, but and I had like a really great and strong understanding of art, but coming to fashion and coming to music was something that happened much later. Really when I was like 19, um, 19, 20, and that's been like an ongoing process of unlearning and relearning references. Um, but what I found really funny is that when you Google power dressing, so the AI overview, AI, the AI overview, the first person that it brings up is Alexis Carrington Colby. Roll the clips.
I'm what I am, and that's why I'm where I am. Don't you ever forget that. The reason that I am who I am and where I am is because I make everything my business. I have a reputation that is unpredictable, devious, and manipulative. I cherish that reputation because it keeps my enemies off guard. At 6 o'clock, I like to slip out of my shoes and into something more comfortable, like a drink.
For those of you that don't know, I was introduced to Alexis Carrington Colby via Dynasty. That's her character on the show. That's who she plays. She's like the original, you bitch! Like it was just about like money and opulence and drama. And like it was a bit of like a telenovela, but for like white people, I guess. Aired in the 80s. But oh my goodness, Joan Collins absolutely ate in this role. I found the show because I was using like a dodgy Russian website to like stream things when I was in university, and I like came across it and realized that like the only other like TV show they had uploaded was like the entire full seasons of Dynasty. So I was like, hell yeah, let's get into it. I just became really obsessed. It's just everything that I've ever wanted from a show. So much so that I I actually when I used to be involved with like nightlife and running raves and being a part of like the kind of nightlife scene in Belfast. I used to make costumes for dancers. Your private dancer. And I ended up making this like mini collection and calling it Joan Collins Industrial Raver. And of course it was just like all suiting. But again, I think that really like speaks to like the power of suiting, that like for me is like calling it designer was like too much of a push, but like as a young maker and somebody interested in that world, suiting was something that was so accessible to me through charity shops, and upcycling and shredding it and taking it apart was this really fun thing that I was able to engage with and able to do. Um, I just find that really interesting. So what we had in the 1980s was what was known as like the long boom in America. So it was just a huge era of prosperity, of economic growth, like post Vietnam. In the UK, we were kind of going through a very different stage, which I find is really funny because uh, America at the time, like America, fuck yeah, was so ostentatious. Everything was over the top, and obviously it was the 80s. It was the 80s. Everything was, but in Britain, in the UK and in Ireland, it was very, very different. We were under Thatcher. Womp womp. Also, if you type in power dressing, the cover of the Wikipedia like page for power dressing is Margaret Thatcher. Like absolute jump scare. Um, but it's really, really interesting where, suiting had such a pivotal role in the UK and in the US of portraying that a woman could have it all. That we could have it all. We could have the career. We could scale the heights. We could smash that glass ceiling. And there was a real physicality to those suits. There was a sharpness and a emulation of the male identity, but transferred onto a woman. So the huge shoulders, it was a way of keeping a woman covered, but becoming loud. There was a lot of loud colors, clashing patterns. Obviously, I've mentioned it so many times, but like shoulder pads are just such a defining part of that era. So it was really a partnership of reduced sexualization in the workplace, but also that physicality of taking up the space, of demanding professional equality, which 50 years on, we're still looking for. Have you seen her? Oh, ate the mic again. So the actual definition of power dressing is a style of clothing designed to protect authority and confidence in male-dominated workspaces. And that is just so bloody interesting. Like the idea of like clothing as protection. And I think back to my 20s and moving through my 20s and constantly reaching for suits. Um and how I've always felt strong and safe in a suit. Like I'll go to put on something really feminine and tight. I could also just wear a suit because like that makes me feel so strong. And I was trying to explain to Luke, you cannot buy that feeling of feeling strong, of feeling protected. And I often have these conversations with my best friend Matt Spratt, shout out, incredible director, filmmaker, visual artist. But we talk about what is beauty, and beauty is strength, and beauty is when somebody feels their most strong. And that's what I guess I kind of reject in some ways, and have rejected femininity and the ideals of femininity for so much of my 20s. Like I'm turning 30 in a couple of months, but I've rejected so much femininity because it hasn't felt strong to me. The idea of femininity that I was being sold didn't feel safe, and it didn't feel strong. And when I was kind of coming out of the church and coming out of a really conservative background, I shaved my head, I started getting tattoos, and suits felt inherently uh not masculine, but just safe. I just keep coming back to this word of safe. Yeah. And it is funny because like suits are such an inherently like masculine thing. Obviously, like what is masculinity in 2025? But it's really funny because I've never really, like I said, I don't really identify with that form of femininity. But I have been playing around with feminine clothing much more of late. But I I've never felt feminine in my being. I felt so much more yang than yin. I always felt so much um, more akin with masculinity than I did with femininity, and not in a pick me way. But apparently, that is something that a lot of autistic women really struggle with. Who knew? And I got my ADHD diagnosis just over a year ago. Why are these cows being so vocal? They were like, hell yeah, get that diagnosis, girl. But when I got the diagnosis, she was like, let's get you medicated. Still unmedicated to this day. Thank you very much. But she also was like, I would be really keen to get you an autism assessment. And my doctor was telling me that apparently it's really hard to separate the two. They present in such similar ways that so many of the factors that would contribute to autism can manifest in ADHD and vice versa. So they're really hard to, isolate when it comes to cis women. But I thought that that was just an interesting thing. Also, I never ever really understood the queerness of suiting. Y'all waiting for this one. I never, I never, well, obviously that was because I hadn't come to terms with my own sexuality. Like, girl, like, and I used to get really pissed off about that because people would like question me on my sexuality all the time. They were like, "No, you must be this," and I'd be like, "Well, I don't. I think I'm straight." So, and it used to like really annoy me. People kind of like battering me to like get an answer that they approved of, whereas I was just having so much fun expressing myself in a new way, which I guess is queer to not present yourself within the confines of heteronormativity. However, I am pansexual, and that's been something that I've come to over my 20s. But like looking back at like the strong presence of suiting and my style and the development of that throughout my 20s, I'm like, girl, like the green buzz cut with the sat, like, yeah. But it's funny because then when I go back and I look at like people who are just like incredible activists and um, queer women of note, so many of them take on the wearing of suits. So I think about your Fran Lebowitz and I think about your Leslie Feinbergs. Fran Lebowitz, iconic author, writer, icon, kind of known for like the white shirt, the smart men's suit, the jeans, and the cowboy boots, which is a look that I've dabbled in quite a few times. Leslie Feinberg, communist, lesbian, transgender rights activist in New York, um, died uh, just over 10 years ago, but author of the Stone Bitch Blues. Um, like, obviously, you've got the images here, like, just incredible style. But to reduce it to style makes it sound like it's something that's being put on, whereas it's not. Like, this was armor for people that needed to assimilate and who were so visibly queer in yesteryear and in years gone by. And so I think like the layering of suiting will just never not um cause so much interest to me. And I know that there's so much more about this specific topic we can talk about, but we're kind of doing a rabbit hole whistle stop tour. If you want me to talk more about this, we can absolutely do that in another day. And I wanted to note, actually, sorry, while I was here, I wanted to note there was a cover of the New York magazine, The Bold, Brave New World of Gay Women, Lesbian Chic. Iconic. Katie Lang, obviously, suited and booted. And Vanity Fair as well covered Katie Lang in this amazing cover with like what do you call her, Cindy Crawford. But this was from and I found all of these resources from an article that was from Heist Nobody from a couple of years ago, or 1 year ago actually. And it was talking about how lesbian chic was for everyone except most lesbians. And I'm reminded of, like the iconic like Sex in the City episode super early on where like Charlotte falls in with like the art lesbians.
The power lesbian. They seem to have everything. Great shoes, killer eyewear, and the secrets to invisible makeup.
Because like, come on, like if I see a really well dressed woman, like if I'm at a fashion week, if I'm at a party, if I'm at an event, or just anywhere in my day to days, and I see a really well dressed woman, I'm just gonna assume you're gay or trans or on that queer spectrum, because those are the best dressed people. They're people that know how to play with that push and pull of the ideology of clothing and what clothing actually represents in that form of communication. Like that's what style is. But anyway, coming back to this article, um, rude. These cars are so loud. Anyway, um, they wrote, it wasn't just the aesthetic that lesbian chic misrepresented. The reality of life for most gay women was different from the lives led by Lang and Madonna, with their wealth and prestige. For regular people, being openly gay sometimes and often came at a heavy social cost. It could mean being disowned from family. It could mean difficulty finding a job, and it result in increased harassment. Ultimately, lesbian chic pandered to straight audiences and turned lesbianism into an aesthetic without confronting the politics of queerness. It's going to need to sit with that one. Yeah, because it is quite interesting, I guess, because all of those styles of suiting and the slacks that we're seeing from even Stella McCartney, like none of those would be assumed queer if a woman wore any of those. But I wonder is it about the person in the suit that's more telling. And I mean, I've even faced that with my family. My nanny, who we spoke about earlier, my style icon, didn't speak to me for 2 years when I shaved my head and when I started experimenting with my body and with my terms of dress. Obviously, it was repressed um, queerness and a lack of identity and me searching for that. And that was such a special time. But her religious background did not allow her to understand the push and pull of those things. And so she could not look me in the eye for 2 years. Um, and it was really, really hard. Like I faced that um, the result of taking up space and the result of um, experimenting with your style. And so this article really resonated with me, and I thought was just really, really interesting. And I also think about other icons like your Andre Leon Talley, and you think about same way onto queerness, onto blackness of being seen as acceptable in spaces that don't necessarily care about you. I haven't actually read the Chiffon Trenches. I know, sue me. No, I do actually need to do that. That's really bad. But I do understand. And again, this is everything I'm saying is a whole essay in and of itself. But the push and pull, drink every time I say push and pull, of standing out because you are othered. You just are, but also needing to assimilate and needing to fit in. And that is what suiting does for so many of us. It allows us to be safe. And I just keep coming back to this word of safety. And in no way is that me trying to conflate the black experience with the gay experience, but just that they both experience similar feelings, a lack of safety, a lack of belonging. So what happened is my phone died, and I was recording for another 20 minutes. So we're gonna have to make this into a two-parter because the sun is going down, and it's gonna get real cold in this little corner. So bear with me. Hang on, let's get over into the sun. And thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll do another one. We'll do a part 2 because I have it all scripted and ready to go. Why did I do that? This is not cool. I'm not cool. Meet me by the woodshed. Oh, okay, we're hanging up.